award-winning creative director and author who has used his talents for Red Bull Energy Drink, Amazon, Palo Alto Networks, Amwins Group, Transamerica Capital, and more. His favorite key on the keyboard is delete. And with that, Patrick, take it away.
My favorite key on the guitar is F. Let's say that. Okay, so everything working? Everybody see this thing?
Can see it.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is about improving your pitch, improving your core message. And I think this is the highest leverage thing anybody can do for sales and marketing. I'm going to give a short overview and an exercise of a way to do this, a way to think about this. And you guys will actually sort of write a little pitch as I go along, and maybe you can chime in. There's places for questions. And at the end, I'll review anything that you want to review and take questions, and we can have discussions and all that stuff. So that's my plan of attack. Philosophically, I think your message should never get in the way of what you're doing. And I believe this pretty strongly, especially if you're doing the hard work of making something worthwhile that somebody needs. It shouldn't get tripped up in the marketing. Like, that's the last place it should break. So if you think about someone making a software as a service platform, there's just so many things and so much complexity that goes into making the damn thing that it's just getting tripped up on the 1 yard line is something of a tragedy, So here's where we're going to start. And hopefully everybody has their mic muted, but I want you to pretend that you're at a party and somebody walks up to you and asks you, so what do you do? And I want you to answer the question out loud right now. Go. So what do you do? Okay. So whatever happened there, it is some kind of a pitch, and we're going to make it better. And to make it interesting, the framework that I'm going to use to do this is a one-liner. And that's a term from a movie industry, and it's the shortest summary of a movie. It's a really interesting thing because in a one-liner, you're pitching somebody on whether or not they should take 2 hours of their life and watch your movie. So you really have to get it all across. So I think all great pitches and all great one-liners follow a similar structure. There's a problem, there's an action, and there's a result. Now, if you're crafty with words, there's a bunch of ways to get this into, so, it seems really short or maybe it skips part of it, but trust me, it's all in there. And this is really the way our brains work. We view the world in terms of our goals, the things that get between us and the goals, problems, and then things we can do or tools we can use to get to that goal. And I think this is so fundamental that we file everybody under the problem they solve. The Charter Cable here might say that they have a communications specialist, but he's the cable guy. Everybody knows he's the cable guy. He knows he's the cable guy. So I think if you don't have the correct problem, or if you're not filed under a problem and somebody said, it's almost impossible for people to remember you, which is kind of a problem for sales and marketing. So for example, this webpage, right? What problem do these people solve? It's hard for us to remember it because we don't know what the problem is. But if you use this form, this problem, action, result form, I think it's almost impossible to have a bad pitch. You may pitch something that somebody doesn't want, but it's impossible to have a bad pitch. So let's, for exercise, take the movie Jaws. And somebody take a stab at everybody take a stab at a one-liner for Jaws. If somebody wants to chime in here and tell me what Jaws is about in terms of problem, action, and result, just sum it up in as few words as possible. That would be good.
The problem was there was a shark. The action was they got a bigger boat, or was the problem that they needed a bigger boat? And they went and chased the shark down. And the result was a bunch of people got eaten and no more shark?
Right. So here's the interesting thing. As you do this, the movie has a lot of problems, right? So one problem is the shark. The other problem that holds Chief Brody's story together is he's got a fear of the water. He's overcoming his fear of the water. There's a problem that we're seeing all over the place. This is really topical now, which is the town wants to reopen because they want their revenue, but maybe that's not the best thing to do from a public health standpoint. It's actually based on the play Enemy of the People by Ibsen, I guess. But I grabbed this, and so it moves around a little bit. You have to think about it. But I grabbed this one from IMDb. I don't think it's the greatest one, but I'll read it and we'll start working with it. A police chief with a phobia of open water battles a gigantic shark with an appetite for swimmers and boat captains in spite of a greedy town council who demands that the beach stay open. Right? That's sort of, it's all in there. Part of the reason I don't like it is I don't think it's well written because it suggests that, the police chief likes eating swimmers, and he's going to use this on wholesome appetite to fight the shark. It's a little misplaced modifier there for any grammarians playing along at home. But so I did this to it. I changed it. My version is on the right, and I start when a beach town is terrorized by a gigantic shark, a police chief must overcome his fear of the water. And the reason why I did this is you want to start with the problem right up front because it grounds things immediately. So one-liners, great pitches start with the problem. And then, especially in person, right? If someone's in a pitch, you're pitching someone in, I don't know, maybe a higher pressure situation. A trick that they'll do just to try and see if you're put together well or keep you on your feet is they'll immediately challenge the problem and bring up another problem. They'll reframe it, right? And then you have to deal with that. But you have to know what the conflict is. And so here's the one-liner for the movie Big. After making a wish at a fortune teller machine, a young boy becomes a grown man overnight and must cope with finding a place to live, finding a job, and adult relationships with only the help of his 10-year-old friend. So if you'll notice, that's the problem. The young boy becomes a grown man overnight. And if we start with just the problem, we cut everything else out, we don't lose anything. We gain a lot of, we don't have to spend as much of our reader or listener's attention to get the point across, which is very important. So for kill a word, here's one I wrote. Nobody has time to figure out your confusing messaging, which means you're losing sales, right? That's a problem. So here's just a problem, and this is a problem for a couple of different companies I can think of. Nobody likes a used car salesman. So try and, can anybody come up with a problem or a company that's the problem for, or maybe think of one. We'll use this as we go through, so I won't ruin it if you haven't gotten it yet. So what I'd like you to do is write down a problem, the problem you solve. And when you state the problem, it should be something that gets a person to say, that's right. Like you've stated the problem, you've talked about their pain in such a way that that's the problem. Like, it sucks to sit in traffic. It's not a problem that many of us have right now, but if you have a bad commute or you have that experience of sitting in traffic, you're like, that's right, it's terrible. Let me tell you what's terrible about it. It's all these problems. Or here's a problem that I have right now sometimes, which is you love your kids, but sometimes they drive you insane. And it's sort of an emotional reaction when you state the problem correctly. They're like, kids, yep. Or another one, like every startup struggles with cash flow. And if you're talking to someone who has a business who's struggling with cash flow, they're going to have that emotional reaction, which is what we're going for. There can and should be more than one problem for your company or your product, or even if you've only got one product. Like a corkscrew will solve the problem of opening a bottle of wine, but for a waiter, the corkscrew solves the problem of giving good service and making a good impression so that they can get a good tip. And for a wine producer, a corkscrew could solve the problem of how to stay top of mind with restaurants, because you give away a wine bottle or corkscrew with your logo on it, and you give it away. So let's see. Because this is the hardest part to give you an idea. There are an infinite number of problems in the world, but there aren't that many kinds of problems. For business, I think there's only two kinds of problems. You're either going to raise revenue or you're going to lower costs. I'm in the raising revenue business myself. For individuals, it gets a bit more complicated. There could be a solution to a specific problem. How do I get my gutters unclogged? But lots of things, status, your sense of self-worth, wealth, food, shelter, they pile up in a hierarchy of needs, but there's only a finite set of problems you're going to tap into, really. So for your problem, as you write it down, I suggest you should be specific. You should make sure it's a point of real pain, and then you should edit it ruthlessly to get it down as short as possible. So take a couple of minutes and just write a line or two about the problem you solve. I feel like I should have taken the time to learn the Jeopardy theme on guitar so I could just Da, da, da.
If you let me share my screen, I could play the Jeopardy theme song.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
All right, let me see. Get this.
Oh, I thought you were going to play it on guitar.
Oh no, just on YouTube.
All right. Let's. Does anybody want to share your problem while we're here? Tell me what the problem is.
There we go.
Yeah. So for my problem, so we look to help companies stay ahead of the curve and stay up to date on consumer behavior.
Okay, that's what you do. The problem is something like consumer behavior changes rapidly. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
You do it. So it's from the customer's perspective. What's the problem they face?
Oh, I see. So that would be, there's so much information out there, but it's tough to kind of grasp it all and be able to like action those.
Yeah, or it could be maybe it's consumer behavior changes rapidly, but it's really hard to get actual data to make sense of the. Do you see what I'm saying? So it gets more to the problem that you solve. So I do know something about research firms, and strangely enough, I know some stuff about statistics. A long time ago, I got a degree in economics. But one of the things that's really tough with social science and stuff like that is how do you really know that is any good, and how do you do that research well? So there might be something, depending on the audience, that you can state that problem a little differently. But let's move along, and I can help at the end. I can help in the Slack chat, and I can help in the Q&A. Let's see. Okay, so hopefully everybody's got problems. Sort of by definition, if you're alive, you have problems of one sort or another. So the second component here is the action, and that's what you do to help solve the problem. So here's the action for my hypothetical example. Nobody likes to haggle with a used car salesman, so we remove the used car salesman entirely. So for mine, I help cut all the noise out of your sales and marketing. So what I'd like you to do is explain your plan to help, your action, what you do. And there are 3 tips here. You should make it feel like a new idea. Now, what I do is a little bit different. So you could say that what I do is I do copywriting. You could say that. That's what I did for a while. What I do is a bit different than that. But even, I cut all the noise out of your sales and marketing is a sort of a more interesting way to talk about helping somebody with their writing. The second thing you have to do is you have to make it understandable. Make it as simple as possible. Use as little jargon as possible. One way to think about this is to think about explaining it to, I don't know, maybe a 10-year-old or someone's grandmother. And the third thing you have to do is make sure that the action that you take is a solution to the problem that you've offered. I know that sounds strange, but sometimes because the parts slip a little bit, that's a bit of a problem. So take a second, just jot down an action. It's a little strange doing this virtually because usually I can look around at a room full of people and see whether they're done.
Yeah, it's definitely a new experience, eh? There you go. Great idea. Just throw your problems and actions in the chat when you've got them done.
Colin, is that one of your children trying to play the Jeopardy theme song or what?
Yeah.
All right, so good. That's an interesting problem. These are some interesting problems. I love the meaning one. All right, well let's get through the result, and then we'll open it up to discussion. So the result, right? So here's the result. Here's an example of a result, right? Nobody likes to haggle with a used car salesman. We removed the car salesman entirely. You can choose and test drive a car hassle-free. So that could be CarMax, that could be Carvana. I think there are some other car buying services out here that kind of have the same kind of pitch, right? Here's a problem. Here's one of these one-liners that I wrote for an organization that I helped rebrand. And I want to go through it to show you because the difference between a one-liner and a tagline. So poor kids don't get the opportunity rich kids do. We provide underserved kids mentorship and growth experiences so they can live up to their potential. As a result, they have better lives with greater economic mobility, all of which makes our community a stronger, better place to live. So you could think of this shorter version, we help opportunity find its way to the children who need it most, as a one-liner. Well, what do? Well, we help opportunity find its way to the children who need it most. It's really more of a tagline because we don't have it in that problem, action, result statement. It's not as clear as it could be, even though the problem, action, result statement is a little bit longer. You have to really think about what exactly do they do to solve this problem? What does it mean? The opportunity finding its way is a bit too nebulous. So someone has to really think. And when they think, they either come up with a message that you didn't want or don't intend. And in any event, they burn calories. Like it's real metabolic work. Like chess grandmasters burn an insane amount of calories, something like 6,000 calories per day while they're competing at the highest level. And your brain instinctively just wants to turn off. So they will look for any reason to pay attention to something else if they don't really understand what the problem is you're solving. So this is the actual tagline that we came up with, just incidentally, Wayfinders helping opportunity find every child. And this is the result. The result is that they all have better lives with greater economic mobility, all of which makes our community a stronger, better place to live. I'd like to point out that this is, if I was thinking about the perfect one-liner, this I think is still a little loose. But part of the problem with that organization is they expanded into other things. So they started off sending underserved kids to camp, and then they added mentorship, and then they added this other thing, and then they added this other thing. So I would really like for you guys to shoot for complete today rather than perfect. And perfect with these things, sometimes they drive you nuts. It's an iterative process. As a matter of fact, as I looked at this thing, I looked at mine and I said, well, I saw ways that I could make it better. But doing it, sitting on it, and coming back to it is really the most productive way to work with these things. So what's the result that you deliver? What do you want to see happen in the world? What's going to be different after you've done your work? And I'd like you to be as specific as you possibly can be about this and make sure it's big enough. So there was a meeting one, let me scroll back up in the chat here. So there's a meeting, the problem is preparing for meetings, time consuming and tough. We prepare you a one-pager for every meeting quickly so that you ace every meeting confidently. So the result there is that's a result of that, solving that problem in that way. But I think the result is much bigger than that. So you can have meetings in half the time. So you save time and you get to, people aren't exhausted or they're not bored, or the result really is, I don't exactly know how to state this, but everything else you could do with that lost time that you get back. I mean, it's kind of like you get 10 more hours in a week, productive hours in a week. And that's a huge result. So try and think through and make the result as big as possible. And yeah, I guess it's time for the theme music now. So give it a shot, write down a result.
And just while Patrick is paused here and we're waiting for everybody to work on the result, if you're following along on the Twitch stream, I'm going to be jumping over to the Beck Holland presentation shortly. But Patrick, I'll leave you with Sarah here, and she can continue moderating and running this one so the people that are involved and engaged can still keep going. And we do have the recording, so people that are going to miss this can jump in and see the recording afterwards.
Yeah, let me just show this. If you've been doing this and you're not part of this chat thing, if you go here, there's a form that will let you submit your problem, action, result statement. You'll also get a tool to use this and the presentation. So yeah, so and if you do this, I'll review. You can send me your thing and I'll review it, give you some feedback.
Perfect. That's killword.com/pitch.
Yep.
Perfect. I'm throwing that in the live chat there, and then yeah, I'll message you there, and so you can throw the offer in if you're in the Slack channel. There you go. Perfect.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks, Patrick. I'm definitely going to submit one for myself. I was kind of using half my brain to try and get there, but I want to take some time and rewatch this, and I'll submit it on there when I finish mine.
Yeah, sure.
Great. It was great to meet you, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great. I've really been looking forward to some talks and enjoyed the ones I've watched. So really appreciate you guys putting this on.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Just out of curiosity, are you watching on Twitch or were you watching in Zoom?
A little of both.
Cool.
I really like the Twitch stream because, that Zoom rollover meeting thing. I always feel like it's just a little bit more seamless to watch on Twitch.
Totally. I was, that's the biggest thing. Like we had 300 people on a Zoom call and I had to boot them all off so we could get to the next one.
Yeah. But even so, this is great. Like even without little hitches or whatever, it's tremendous. And I think it's so great that you guys are doing this now. I really like Aaron's, your guys' messaging around. It's time to own this. Time to step up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Patrick. I've got to go, but I'll leave you in the capable hands of Sarah, and everybody else on Twitch. Follow me, and we're heading to see back.
Okay. So, since we have a few more minutes here, right? And I need to have to jump over to Slack to answer some questions over there too. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Anything that doesn't get answered here, or if anybody who was watching on Twitch has questions that they want answered, they'll put those in the Slack channel.
Okay. So if somebody wants to throw their problem action result statement in this chat window, I can talk about it a little bit, ask some questions, and hopefully punch them up, and we'll see where we're at. Or if anybody just has any general questions, is also. Okay, I believe the keys to innovation are out there. Okay, Francesco, I love that statement, but that's a tagline. That's a big statement that I have to figure out what the problem is. Our mission is to understand that cultural shifts faster than the norm. The problem is kind of the world keeps changing, right? Is this the consumer behavior changes rapidly? Maybe the problem is how do you have time to do your job and change up with and stay current with changing consumer behavior? I don't know. Do you want to, Francesco? Do you want to unmute your mic and have a conversation? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Does that make sense or?
Yeah. So you're saying that what I typed in there, it's too generic. Like I should be focusing more on a specific issue at hand.
Yeah. Well, if it's a problem, right? So everyone should have a beautiful home, right? That's a statement, and it's a fine statement. But if I'm a lawn care company, it's maybe you should have a lawn that your neighbors envy, or in my case, it should probably be like, you don't want the homeowners association putting a lien on your house because you've put off mowing your lawn again. But it's more of a concrete problem. Yeah. So I think that it could also be. I know this is sort of a business to business thing, but it could also be personal. It could be we always feel like we're falling behind because the world changes so fast. Mm-hmm. We send you this digest every day at 8:00 that keeps you abreast of. See, do you see how I'm trying to make it as specific as possible?
Yeah.
And as a general statement about also sales and marketing, I think that like a marketing director, like whoever's merging the two things together, the sales and the marketing, they really need a list of the problems and the audiences that those talk to. And really the job is you maintain that list. So it could be a bunch of different problems, like the corkscrew. For different segments or for different people, it solves a different problem.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else? Jordan, you've got an interesting one. So if I scroll up here, the problem is Japan is the most difficult market to find. Bilingual. Yeah. Hey.
Hey, sorry about that. My 2-year-old daughter is sleeping in the other room, so.
That's okay. My 3-year-old daughter is sleeping down the hall. Hopefully.
All right, right on. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too. So talk to me about this.
Sure. So my company is a executive search firm that is headquartered in Tokyo, Japan. I drive the outbound funnel and doing a little bit more video like this these days as well. But essentially, our clients are expanding multinational companies that need to find key talent so that they can successfully grow their organization in that region.
So what's the problem?
So the problem is it's the most difficult market to find these people for a number of different reasons. It's culturally the least fluid market. People are not actively looking. They're not present digitally. So you need to take a proactive, data-driven approach to actually mine these folks out. And yeah. So
it's hard to find the people you need.
Correct.
Right. I'm trying to make it simpler. And so the bilingual skills and global mindset to drive growth it's hard to find. I don't know how you would say it, but like I've been to Tokyo, and I have some friends who've lived in Japan, so I get that it's very different. But yeah, I think what's the problem? The bilingual skills, is it hard to find international talent?
No, it's quite endemic of Tokyo that the English ability, the language ability is low. There's 5% of the population speaks English fluently, like at business level.
I've had several friends who've taught English in Japan have told me all about it.
Yeah.
So, I would say it's hard to find top level talent that speaks English.
Yeah.
So there's this. What's interesting to me about this is it's a really specific problem, and I think that's great for a one-liner or for a pitch. You're making it a bit more complicated, and people do this sometimes because sometimes they feel that if they sort of puff it up a little bit, it sounds better. It works better, and I think it sounds better if it's as simple as you can get away with. So help companies take a data-driven approach to their growth and hiring strategy in Japan. We find you top-level talent that speaks English or we have a database of. So what's that data-driven approach? Is there another way to say that? Because those are kind of buzzwordy things, and underneath them, there's something awesome.
Yeah, that's fair to say. So it's actually not a database. It's more we are proactively calling and delivering the data of people, of their roles, their age, their openness to switch jobs, and providing these sort of real-time updates. So it's almost the opposite of just what you would see on the Glassdoor or Indeed or any one of these databases where you can find candidates.
So we constantly track, we talk to, I'm trying to figure out.
Actively engage.
Yeah. Actively engage is good. I'm trying to. I want to get. This is probably wrong, but I want to get it down to. We call everybody. We track and call everybody who fits the description on a regular basis to see how they're doing, so we know where they are. Like, how would you say it to somebody that you were just talking to? So one way to do it is to try and say that thing as if you were talking to somebody over a beer or a cup of coffee, and you're just like, okay, here's what's really going on, and then figure out if you can get away with saying it like that. And then you had a result down here. The results is we find you the talent you need. And in weeks, not years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
So, all right, well, mess with it a little bit and submit it somewhere, and I'll give it another review. But I think that can be really great because it's so specific. So,
sure.
Thanks. See. You're very welcome. Let's look at Michael's here.
Yeah, you might need a few minutes to read through all that.
That's okay. It's what I do. See, we have a very different. So here's the problem. How do you know that you've got a good salesperson? Is that the problem?
Absolutely. Well, right. I think the big issue is that many of them know they have several that are the wrong fit. And that's obvious through the metrics and the actual production of revenue or gross healthy revenue. And any VP of sales that I'm speaking to could probably rattle off a few individuals on their teams that they wish they could perform up to par.
So is it that they know they have low performers, but yes, the result is stable sales productivity? Is what's the action? Do you fix their recruiting? Do you fix their team?
Yes. So it's taken over part of their sales recruiting for a few key positions within their team. And the problem is most organizations are really good at what they do, but then recruiting is just not what they do. And so if they're over-reliant upon internal recruiters that perhaps have never worked in sales, or same could be said for some of the external recruiters that they're working with, and don't have an extensive level of experience knowing what good looks like and how to screen for that and properly analyze it.
So there's a couple of problems here, and we can pick one, right? So one is, and it's interesting because you're dancing around this, which is you've got duds on your team, right? That's a problem. That's one problem.
Yeah.
Or two, recruitment is hard. Maybe one way to say
it's not your thing.
Well, yeah, you didn't get into whatever business to be a great recruiter. You got into whatever business to be great at that business. Is how I would say the problem.
Exactly.
And then we manage your recruiting. Maybe you're hiring and firing. No, you recruit. How I would say that, and the result is that you get the performance you need without any of the headaches of recruitment.
Absolutely, because part of the impact is they lose, and I'm referring to somebody maybe a CRO or VP of sales. They tend to lose a bit of confidence that is placed in them that they need to leverage to institute either the solutions or the processes or the tech stack to either grow maybe a late stage startup type organization or grow an already established organization, and that confidence is lost when they're making plans to invest in the infrastructure of the organization, for example, but their team isn't performing.
Yeah.
So it can be very career limiting.
Recruiting is hard. We take over and manage the entire recruitment process, and the result is we lower the cost of bad hires by 50%, and you get top performers for your team.
Yeah.
And see,
like you've got the duds.
You can say that too. I mean, that's which is a whole nother thing, right? Nobody likes to fire anybody. I mean, that's a terrible thing to do, but some people need to go. So, that
certainly summarizes very succinctly the the 2 or 3 problems that I had listed there.
And and let me generalize this for everybody else too. When something's a problem, sometimes we're just afraid to state the problem. But did you notice when I said you have duds on your team, you just kind of went, oh, it like focused everything. So a great way for the meeting brief person, a great way to use this tool is also to use it for every meeting, which is you write down the problem, you write down the action, and then you write down the action you're going to take and the result that you want, because it allows everybody to focus right in on what's happening in the meeting and be more productive. So, all right, let me move on and see. Oh, are we?
Thank you,
Sarah, are we out of time, or what do we got here?
We're good until I would hop off for the next one at 1:00, but because this is a regular Zoom call, I can basically just leave you as long as you like. So it's completely up to you.
Okay, well, and then I guess everything in the Slack channel will wait. Is there anybody else who wants to chime in there? Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. I think, let's see. Oh, wait, let's look at Brooklyn. SalesNav isn't built to scale or reach leads outside the platform. It's time consuming at best to use an email finder tool, plug in action. So can we pick one of these problems? It's time consuming to use an email finder tool. Or is it, I want to define that problem a little bit more clearly.
Sure.
Like in the action's great. I mean, we can make it shorter, install this Chrome extension. You never have to worry about that again. Okay. So this is LinkedIn Sales Navigator?
I guess it's multiple problems, because one is it's not super scalable unless you manually go out and try, getting lead emails from the leads you find in SalesNav, but that can take a lot of time. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck on the platform.
Oh, here's a problem. LinkedIn doesn't want to give up email addresses.
Right. It's a walled garden.
Yeah. LinkedIn is a wall. Yeah. LinkedIn doesn't, but you need those email addresses for your sales efforts, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's good.
I guess we have used that phrasing a little bit, but we also don't want to alienate LinkedIn too much.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing. So maybe the way to say the problem is it's boring and repetitive to enter emails into your CRM by hand. Mm-hmm. And then you don't exactly call out LinkedIn. And this Chrome extension allows you to export emails from Sales Navigator with 99% deliverability. Yeah, allows you to export emails from Sales Navigator. And the result is you never have to waste your time again.
Okay. To focus on the time element, especially.
Yeah. You can spend your time prospecting or selling rather than, doing data entry.
Right. Okay.
Boy, data entry never sounds good, does it?
Yeah. And then extending that up the ladder of decision makers, we could talk about SDRs using their time more effectively on your team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So that problem would be people on your team are wasting a lot of time doing this by hand. You don't want to pay, $30 an hour, $60 an hour, whatever it is, however much a year, however you would say it. You don't want to pay that for people to do data entry.
Right.
I have this huge chip on my shoulder about having people do monotonous, repetitive tasks when that's what we've designed computers for. Anytime I find myself doing the same thing three times in a row, I may maybe it doesn't even save me enough time, but I'm willing to save a day to figure out or take a day to figure out how to automate it just because it's just
for
wrong.
The rest of the time.
Yeah. So I never have to do that again. And then, or like I'll go to, we were talking about Guitar, and Guitar Center has the worst POS systems in the history of the world. It's like, or, you go to a bank and they've got 3 different systems they have to enter something in, and that poor person just sits behind the desk doing those same repetitive keystrokes. It just makes me angry for them. But it's just like, this is no way to treat a human being.
There you go.
Yeah, that's good. This is no way to treat a human being.
No way to treat a human being. Humanize your prospecting.
If you hire a person, you should get a person for your money. So that's kind of funny. All right.
Thanks.
Well, you're very welcome. I think that's let's see who else we got in here. All right. Anybody else want to chime in, or then I'll sign off. I guess let me, I've got a little bit of an ending here since we've gone over time. I guess I'll do that. Share the screen again. All right. So this is how don't really worry about the details here. This is how I think about sales and marketing. And all this stuff, it's like a flywheel. But the important thing is that notice at the very center, everything spins around a one-liner, an elevator speech, the pitch, whatever you do. So if you tighten that up, everything else works better. So the example of this is if somebody goes, well, what does Patrick do, right? People could say and have said, oh, he's brilliant. He's a real creative guy. He's a writer. He does marketing. He's written some books. He's just, you'd really get a lot out of talking to him. Do you think I'm getting a phone call? I don't think I'm getting a phone call because I haven't taught them how to explain the problem I solve and the value that I can provide. But if they say anything in here about, we don't have a lot of attention, nobody has time to figure out a confusing message, he cuts all the noise out of your, sales and marketing, makes things more succinct. Anything in there, it gets more traction and everything works better. So what I recommend is if you can drill this down, if you can get it to be really tight, memorize it, repeat it over and over again, put it on your business card, if you still have business cards, website, teach it to the entire team, put it in your email signature, open your presentation with it, use it as much as possible. And there's this weird thing that happens. Like after I figure something out, I don't want to repeat it because I understand it necessarily. But when you're sick of saying it, they're just hearing it for the first time. Repetition works. And then if you want any more help, you can go and you can get this presentation. There's a little tool that gives you some checklists for building one of these, and it'll give you a little form and also an email to drop me one of these, and I'll give it a quick review. And yeah, there's my tip at the end about trying this at the beginning of every meeting or call. Like, what's really the problem? What should we do about it? And what's the result? It allows you to have much more productive conversations. So yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
You're very welcome. I hope it was helpful.
It was so nice to be able to kind of sit here and silently participate. And like Colin, I think we're going to have to take some time and kind of do it as a team because, as Colin mentioned in my training, we look through your KiloWord kind of deck, and it's been super vital in terms of crafting prospecting emails because you always think if I put flowery speech, it'll really emphasize my point, when in reality it's clouding and cluttering that point. And so I think it's so helpful for me to come back to this now, so much further down the line in my sales career, and kind of remember these things and re-implement them.
Yeah, when you have a real problem, you don't want someone, like if you broke it down on the side of the road with a flat tire, you don't want somebody who comes along in a truck and says, it appears that you have a mobility problem. You don't want that guy. You want the person who's like, you got a flat tire, I can fix it.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Once you have a problem, you're ready for someone to tell you the truth.
Yeah, very true.
So.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everyone who joined this roundtable session. Thank you for those of you who participated. And obviously this will be recorded, so people will be able to see, those people that dropped off will be able to watch the full thing. They can go back and kind of finish their work. And And for any of you who are signed up for the next talk, the next one is going to be with Russ Armstrong. It's on how to build a SaaS sales playbook. That'll be available on the Twitch stream, or you'll have the Zoom link emailed to you. But thanks again, Patrick. So great meeting you. I can't wait to put this to work.
Let me know how it works for you. Any and all feedback is welcome.
I will. Bye, guys. Thank you.